Before Pedro Pascal became a household name, he was sleeping on friends' couches and getting rejected from auditions, even for toilet paper commercials. He nearly became homeless while watching his drama school classmates become famous. For over 15 years, he took small parts and background roles, hoping for just one chance to change everything. That moment finally came when he played Oberyn Martell on Game of Thrones, where his natural charm turned a side character into a fan favorite and launched Pedro from unknown to unstoppable. Pedro Pascal's story begins with loss before he could even speak English. Born in Santiago, Chile, his childhood changed forever because of politics and war. When Pedro was just 9 months old, his parents had to flee Chile's military dictatorship. His father was a fertility doctor, his mother a child psychologist, both respected professionals who lost everything. They first went to Denmark, then moved to the United States, carrying nothing but hope for their children's future. Growing up in Orange County and later San Antonio, Pedro felt caught between two worlds. His parents, who once had successful careers, now struggled to rebuild their lives in a new country. Money was always tight. Pedro watched his father work multiple jobs, while his mother fought to get her psychology degree recognized in America. This early experience taught Pedro what it felt like to be invisible and overlooked. These weren't just abstract ideas, they shaped his entire childhood. The family moved frequently, making Pedro always the outsider trying to fit in. Drama class became his safe space, the one place where being different was actually good. But even theater cost money his family didn't always have, and becoming a professional actor seemed impossible from their working class life. Pedro's love for acting didn't come from confidence or privilege. It came from a kid's need to belong somewhere. Those early struggles would prove crucial to understanding Pedro's later career. For almost 20 years, Pedro Pascal lived in Hollywood's waiting room. While his Juilliard classmates built careers and made money, Pedro collected rejection letters and worked restaurant shifts. The math was brutal. He was good enough to get auditions, but never quite right for the roles that could change his life. Hollywood didn't know what to do with Pedro Pascal. He was too ethnic for leading man roles, but not stereotypical enough for the few Latino characters being written. He was classically trained, but looked too experienced for prestige TV. He was handsome, but in a real way, rather than the fake perfection studios wanted. Every audition sent the same message. He just wasn't marketable. Money was always a problem. Pedro survived on restaurant wages, small theater payments, and occasional TV appearances that barely covered rent. When work dried up, friends let him sleep on their couches. Each rejection reinforced what the industry seemed to be saying: he would never be enough. But Pedro made a choice that went against every Hollywood survival rule. He refused to change himself for their approval. While other actors got plastic surgery or lost their accents, Pedro stayed true to who he was. He embraced his Chilean background, kept his natural voice,
"Oh my God, where am I?"
and rejected the cookie-cutter masculinity that dominated screens. The industry called this stubborn. What they didn't realize was that Pedro was preparing for a cultural shift that was still years away, when audiences would want real people instead of perfect robots. That preparation would pay off in ways no one could have predicted. When Pedro auditioned for Oberyn Martell in Game of Thrones, the casting directors weren't looking for a star. They needed someone good enough to make an impact in just 8 episodes before getting killed off. It was basically an expensive guest role, the kind struggling actors take to pay bills. But Pedro approached Oberyn differently than anyone expected. Instead of playing him as a typical villain or hero, he created something new, a character who was sexy, dangerous, and vulnerable all at once. His Oberyn was bisexual without making it his whole personality, violent without being a brute, and charming in a way that made everyone take notice. The famous, "You raped her, you murdered her, you killed her children."
Raped her! You murdered her! You killed her children!
Scene became legendary, not because it was shocking, but because Pedro delivered it with such raw emotion that viewers forgot they were watching TV. This wasn't just acting. This was a man pouring 20 years of frustration into 8 minutes of screen time. When Oberyn's head got crushed in that final fight,
Elia Martel. I killed her children. Then I raped her. Then I smashed her head in like this.
Something unexpected happened. Instead of moving on, audiences couldn't stop talking about Pedro Pascal. Social media exploded with fan art and tributes for a character who had been on screen for less than one season. Hollywood executives noticed, but they still didn't understand what they were seeing. They thought Pedro got lucky with a well-written character. What they missed was that he had created a blueprint for a new kind of leading man that audiences were craving. This blueprint would become even more important with his next major role. When Jon Favreau offered Pedro the lead role in The Mandalorian, most agents would have said no. Taking a role where your face is hidden most of the time seemed like career suicide for an actor finally getting recognition. But Pedro's decision to embrace the helmet shows he understood something important about modern fame. While other actors chase close-ups and screen time, Pedro realized that voice acting and body language could create connection in ways traditional leading man roles couldn't. He turned the Mandalorian's helmet into the most expressive piece of metal in TV history, showing more emotion through posture and voice than most actors manage with their whole face. The genius of Pedro's Mandalorian performance is how he made viewers forget they couldn't see his expressions. His relationship with Baby Yoda became one of TV's most compelling father-child dynamics, built entirely on Pedro's ability to suggest parental love through body language and vocal tone. Here's the brilliant part. By hiding his face, Pedro forced audiences to connect with who he really was, rather than what he looked like. When he finally removed the helmet in season finales, the emotional impact hit hard because viewers had already fallen in love with the person inside the armor. The Mandalorian proved that Pedro understood something key about modern stardom. In an age of social media, overload, mystery, and restraint could be more powerful than constant exposure. This understanding would serve him well as his fame exploded. Somewhere between The Mandalorian's global success and The Last of Us dominating TV, Pedro Pascal became something rare in celebrity culture. A 50-year-old sex symbol who appeals to every generation. The Pedro Pascal phenomenon isn't just about looks. It's about how he represents masculinity. He projects protection without control, shows emotion without weakness, radiates confidence without arrogance. In a time when traditional masculinity is being questioned, Pedro offers an alternative that feels both timeless and fresh. Pedro's social media shows someone genuinely surprised by his success, which contrasts sharply with the fake personas that dominate celebrity culture. This genuine reaction resonates with audiences tired of artificial celebrity behavior. Perhaps the most significant thing about Pedro's appeal is how it breaks traditional Hollywood rules. He's not the youngest, most conventionally handsome, or most physically imposing actor in his age group. What he has is something rarer: the ability to make viewers feel genuinely seen and understood through a screen. Pedro's late arrival to major success created something unique: an A-list actor without an A-list ego. 2 decades of rejection and struggle left him with humility and work ethic that younger stars often lack. Watch Pedro in interviews and you'll notice something remarkable. He still seems surprised when people know who he is. This is the psychological result of spending 40 years not being recognized. That genuine amazement at his own success makes audiences feel like they're supporting an underdog. Even though he's now one of Hollywood's biggest stars, the struggle years also gave Pedro something valuable: perspective. He approaches each role knowing how easily success can disappear, bringing intensity and commitment that actors who found fame early often lack. His performances carry the weight of someone who understands what it means to be overlooked and underestimated. That emotional depth connects with audiences because most people have felt invisible at some point. Pedro Pascal's rise coincides with a broader cultural shift in what audiences want from their entertainment and stars. The clean-cut leading men of previous decades feel increasingly fake compared to Pedro's genuine warmth. His success shows Hollywood's recognition that audiences want diversity. not just in ethnicity, but in masculinity itself. Pedro represents a different way of being a leading man, one that embraces vulnerability, emotional intelligence, and real warmth. The timing of his breakthrough wasn't accidental. Audiences were ready for Pedro Pascal long before Hollywood was ready to cast him. The industry's initial rejection of his appeal shows how out of touch executives had become with what viewers actually wanted. Now, at 50, Pedro Pascal is entering his prime earning years. Marvel wants him for multiple high-profile projects. HBO develops content specifically around him, and directors who wouldn't return his calls 5 years ago now write roles tailored to his specific appeal. But perhaps most importantly, Pedro has proven there's no expiration date on breakthrough success. His story offers hope to every struggling creative who's been told they've missed their window, that they're too old, too different, or not marketable enough. Pedro Pascal's transformation from struggling actor to global star represents more than just one man's career. It's proof of the power of staying true to yourself in an industry built on pretense. His journey proves that talent combined with timing can overcome decades of rejection, that audiences are smarter than executives think, and that the most powerful kind of appeal comes from genuine warmth and emotional availability. The man who spent 20 years being told he wasn't leading man material became one of the most desired men on the planet by simply being himself. In an age of manufactured celebrity, Pedro Pascal's genuineness feels revolutionary. His story reminds us that the best response to an industry that overlooks you is achieving such undeniable success that they have to restructure entire franchises around your appeal.
Hello, gorgeous. I'm Jack. What's your name? How would you like to ride home on a real cowboy? I got a 6-pack of cold ones all night, so my roomie's out all night, so you can scream my name as loud as you need to, sugar.
Pedro Pascal didn't just become a star. He forced a redefinition of what stardom could look like. The next time you see Pedro Pascal dominating cultural conversation, remember, you're witnessing the vindication of someone who refused to give up on his vision when every industry gatekeeper had written him off. His success represents validation for everyone who has ever been systematically underestimated. Pedro Pascal's story proves that sometimes the industry and audiences align to celebrate exactly the right person at exactly the right time. His success feels earned in a way that manufactured stardom never could.